Ready, hot!
Welcome everybody. Just getting into this week with Kansas State. I felt it was really good last week. We practiced Monday through Thursday like we would a game week to work our preparation and to get our plan in place. Working against Kansas State, in particular, going against their offense. They're very complicated with all the different run schemes and the use of the quarterback run game. All of it together takes some extra work, and fortunately we've had a chance to do some of that. Of course, every part of their game, Coach Snyder and his staff have continue to do a great job. When you watch them offensively being so balanced, they're throwing the ball a little bit more here this year and more effectively, and then defensively very disciplined and sound in everything that they do, and special teams making big plays. So it'll take a great effort by our guys, another great week of focused practice, and to be prepared for them. I'm sure we'll have a great crowd. Everybody's anticipating the opening of the Big 12 season, so hopefully our crowd will engage and be a factor, and hopefully we can play. We'll need to play at a great level to have a chance to win.
Don't you think you know a lot more about your team after Saturday's game?
We'll have 3 games worth, but yeah, sure. But I think that's the case with everybody right now. Everyone across the country, people played 2 and 3 games. That's not enough to gauge anybody by.
How much what you see out of Casey Walker last week? What do you expect this week?
He practiced and did well. Looked like the same old guy, out there working. So we're excited to have him back, and I expect him to play well.
Bob, with your offensive line play, you were so good at protecting the quarterback last year. Do you feel like you've met those standards so far this year?
Well, what you don't realize is some of those sacks are on the quarterback. For instance, we have the play-action pass down by the goal line. It's 2 reads. You got the tight end and the fullback. You either throw it to them or you throw it in the stance. Instead of turning around and going backwards and you run right into somebody that's not the line's fault. And Blake has a sack late in the game, and he's reading the wrong signal caller. So everyone else is run blocking, and he's back there trying to throw. So that doesn't work real well. So the line in the first game, I thought there was a few instances, but we're not far off of that. And again, just because the numbers say something, it isn't always on the line.
You feel you're getting a little depth there, Bob, with some of the kids that are maybe coming along in practice?
They seem to be, everybody's working hard and seems to be getting better. So, I feel like the longer it goes, whether we're getting guys back or, those guys are developing, we should be getting better, hopefully.
Maybe King going to stay at the end now?
We'll play them probably at both.
Bob, looking at some of the tape of last year's game, there were a lot of times where you had 4 defensive ends. I know one of them may have been playing a defensive tackle position, but it looked a little unorthodox the way that you went about defending them. Is that accurate?
Well, we just in some of the longer yardage situations, we just put 4 DNs on the field to rush when we got them in long yardage or in passing situations. So whether we do that or not this year, it's fair to say David was one of those guys that was in there. So we may have 3 or 4 in there if we're in those kind of passing or long yardage situations.
Bob, do you have an update on Tony Jefferson, and do you expect him to play?
I don't have one yet until practice today. So I'll peek my head in after practice and let you know how well he practiced.
Was he practicing at the end of last week?
No.
Were you surprised when Snyder came back to coach after he retired?
I don't know. Yes and no. I know Coach Snyder. So when he retired, I know he had his reasons and was ready for it. He doesn't do anything without a lot of thought. But then again, I know how much he enjoys the game and the preparations and the coaching. That when he was back, that part didn't surprise me. He's Coach is a great competitor. He's a great he's a great coach. So in the end, and probably he's there and he's thinking, hey, this is what I do, and he's going to do it longer. So, and all those guys there have done a great job, with him.
Did you feel the same way when he left in the first place? Yes and no, surprised?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. I was thinking, I know he's getting up there a little bit in age, but he's still a healthy guy that can work with anybody. So, but again, I guess everything has its time.
Anything we don't know about Bill Snyder that would surprise us?
Wow. Trying to think here. Way back when, I think he was a swimmer. He liked to swim for exercise, but sorry, Coach, hopefully he's not mad I let that out of the bag, but I think it's been a while, though, since he's done it. So
Is that at Iowa or K-State?
I don't know. I was just surprised to be over at his home in Manhattan, and he had a swimming lane in there. So he said that was what he liked to do for exercise.
When you first got there, did you ever realize the success that program would have?
No, I've said this a lot. I think when I was, I guess I was naive and probably good that I was in that, as opposed to I think sometimes coaches been in certain places so long they're looking for their next job. I never thought for a minute we wouldn't win. But who am I? I was 10 years at Iowa with Coach Snyder and Coach Fry, and they changed a program that had 17, 18 straight years of losing seasons to where we were we were in the Rose Bowl and bowl games and all in my last 2 years playing and then as a coach. So we did it there. And then when Coach Snyder called, I was at Kent, so I'd only had a full-time job for 9 months before Coach Snyder hired me. And when I got there, it never entered my mind we wouldn't win because I guess all the apathy, I wasn't paying attention to it. Maybe you guys closer to home here were. I didn't know anything about it. I was at Iowa and at Kent, and I didn't know so I didn't know how bad it was until I got there. And so, but still, being young and naive, I'd never thought we wouldn't win. And sure enough, little by little, we won more and more and more. And again, credit Coach Snyder's determination and the guys that stayed through it all, to help build it.
Bob, what is it about his schemes? Every time you bring him and Kansas State up to your coaching staff, they talk about his schemes are challenging for a defense. What does he do that other people don't?
Well, you use all the quarterback run game, so there's the extra guy that you have to account for is the primary, reason. But also he just, the different ways he will change up, blocking schemes depending on where you're lining up. You just have to be very aware of them, and players have to understand them, where you need to be.
How much of an improvement do you see in Colin Klein as a passer this year?
Well, you could tell it's been more of a focus in their first 3 games. They're throwing it more, and he's throwing it well. So, which isn't surprising as he progresses and gets older, and the more work he gets, he's a talented guy. So, what people don't know, I coached with his dad, Doug, at Kent. It was his first full-time job and mine. He was a quarterback coach. I was the DN coach. So, little piece of trivia there for you.
Did you recruit him?
No.
Maybe you've already answered this with talking about Coach Snyder, but what are the kinds of things that upon his return that changed once he got there and now have them back as a ranked team and better? Because
not being in the building, it'd be hard for me to say, Clay. I mean, what they changed. I just see what the end product is, and you see a lot of good football watching them.
I'm curious about focus or detail oriented, or what's he been so good at in the past?
Just as you said, just being, I think, demanding and how and disciplines and how you play and your technique, and I think too, they're very bright in how the schemes and what they put on the field. So all of it together probably.
You said on the conference call this morning that you ran scout team defenses against Snyder for 5 years at Iowa. You still draw on stuff you saw back then, or?
No, I mean that's a long time ago. I could barely remember all the way back then.
How much is his?
Heck, I hadn't been in his office for 17 years, and everybody's still asking me about it. So,
Do you see any similarities between what you guys ran at Iowa and what they're running now?
there's probably some, but I'm sure there's a few things, but I don't, but anyway.
They were really good on offense last year, lit it up on a lot of people, but you played them pretty good. Why did you guys have success defensively last year in Manhattan?
Well, I think overall just technique work and discipline and being, as I said, being where we were supposed to be. We tackled better in the second half. I thought we tackled poorly, really poorly in the first half when you watch that game. And then in the second half, two things. I thought we were more disciplined and being where we ought to be, and tackled better in the second half. And then the offense helped us by being productive and then having them, forcing them to probably have to throw a little more than they wanted to. And then that plays into your hand too.
Bob, was it a matter of you guys just executing really well offensively there in the second half, or was it some mismatches you had athletically?
Well, I probably overall, it's just our overall execution was one of our better days in the timing and in the way we, in the way we executed.
What Klein, you look at him, he doesn't look like he's really that fast, but it seems like he's deceptive in terms of he's a big guy. I mean, what makes him so tough? I mean, I guess.
Well, his big physical presence, so you're not going to arm tackle him. So if you don't have a good square shot on him, he's going to run through it. And then he, as you said, he's got good speed. Now it's just because he's not going to set a record. He's still very effective, and it takes you a while to track him down if you can. Sometimes you can't.
Is he sort of like Blake Bell?
Blake is similar to him in that he's a big guy, strong guy. So there's similarities there.
You game planned for Tebow a few years ago. Is that a reasonable comparison to make?
Yeah, that was there's some similarities, I guess. Yeah, but the offenses are a little bit different, more different.
Before the 2008 game against Texas Tech, you said that the crowd here wasn't overly raucous. Do you still feel that way about this crowd?
I don't need to comment on that. You guys are at every game, and you could see whether they're raucous or not, so you call it as you see it. And you can refer to 2008 if you want. So,
What you said 4 years ago worked pretty well, though. Why wouldn't you do it again?
well, again, that's people got pretty sore at me, so it's
They got over it by Saturday night, I think,
yeah.
when it was 62 to 24 or whatever it was.
You have to pick your spots on that one?
Well, you'd like to see them like that every Saturday, but if you can't be every Saturday, hopefully you will be this Saturday. How's that?
What did they say to you that were mad at you?
Oh, I didn't. I can't say that I heard anything. It just seemed that way.
Bob, it seems like when ranked teams come in here and maybe they're kind of upstart teams that people think might have a shot against you guys always seem to come out and play really well. And not just win those games, but really win them handily. Is there something about these weeks that's special for something that you do?
No, I don't think there's anything that we do. Our as we kind of work through the week, we like to call it the process of winning is pretty standard in how we do it. So just hopefully, I'd like to think that our guys' attention to detail and focus and all is the same, But sometimes for whatever reason, in some games here we've played pretty well, but I don't think there's any exact science to it.
Do you have a number one running back, and if you do, are you willing to tell us who it is?
I don't think you have to have one. What's it matter? They're both going to play, and so is Brennan Clay, and so when you're snapping the ball through a 3.5-hour game, you need them all.
Bob, you've openly admitted you don't like to coach against family. but against mentors like a Coach Snyder, or if you had to coach against Coach Spurrier, do you enjoy those kind of matchups?
Oh, no, I look at them as not, you sort of are just distant from it. It's just, you're just doing your job of, so more than anything, you're focusing on your team and their team, and it isn't about individuals, not in this game. So I don't give much to that.
K-State, last year and this year, seems to be a team that plays down and plays up to its competition. They were screwing around with Missouri State in the week 1. North Texas was a close game in the fourth quarter. And then they play Miami and just blow them out. Have you noticed anything? And last year is similar.
But I don't look at it that way. I look at it, if you look across the country, it's hard to be perfect every week. I think everybody has a little bit of that, and especially early on. I think a lot of, again, as Al asked me early, what do you know yet? In the end, I think it takes a lot more than 3 games to really know. So I think you're still working through some pieces and trying to improve. And so I don't know. I sure don't look at them that way. And I know they'll come in here, excited and ready to play.
Well, this game, I know you said that each game tells you something, but won't this start give you a better window of what you're doing? Because they're going to come at you and
To a degree.
with better athletes.
Sure. To a degree it will.
I read that Coach Snyder said that his game at North Texas reflected the way his week of practices went. My question is, how did your 2 weeks of practices go?
Well, we've only had one.
Well,
Yeah, and they were good. No, I know where you're going, but in the end, I was really pleased with all the work that we got done last week. So, and I'm sure our guys having a little bit of a break will be anxious to go again today and continue that work. We'll need it.
Bob, what do you feel like about their recruiting philosophy kind of allows them to put together quality teams? Is it just really good evaluation or what?
Well, I don't know what their strategies are. You'd have to ask them, but I know that they find a lot of, they have a lot of really good football players, so they obviously have to be evaluating really well and doing a good job recruiting to put, the athletes they have out there.
What do you see from Arthur Brown?
A really good player, tough, physical, he moves well. Does a great job in the middle for him.
Spend more time, on special teams is always important. Tyler Lockett had a 96-yard return last week.
Yeah, we've been watching him. He's excellent at it. So we always, we're working, our cover units really hard. Did last week, will again this week.
They weren't awful the 3 years Bill set out, but they took a dip. Can they sustain what they've been doing when he does step aside for good?
Sure.
Or is that? Because no one's ever won there since Pappy Waldorf in the 30s. So,
well, since Coach got there haven't been many that had much of a chance. He's been there a long time, so which again I'm glad for, and so sure I think Coach Snyder has demonstrated that you can do it. So with the right guy maybe and doing the right things, they can continue it, sure.
Is Blake Bell going to be playing any scout team, playing the role of Colin Klein this week in practice?
No.
Blake Bell going to be playing any more on the goal line? Because it looks like Landry, you're having success in the red zone. You've scored.
Yeah, but we'll still, no, we're not going to use Blake anymore. We're done with that package. Get that word out there. So,
does the success that Landry's had influence you at all in terms of how much you put him in down there?
Say that again.
You've been perfect in the red zone. Does Landry's having success with the offense impact any of your decisions on when to put Blake in down there?
Not really. We're going to, so, like I said, no, we're not going to use it anymore. We're done. So, but.
What are some of the things, or maybe one thing or one lesson you learned from Bill Snyder that you still use today or look back
You
on?
know,
Is there anything?
It's hard to say one thing when you're around a guy for, 5 years playing or 10 years playing and coaching and then 7 years, as a coach for him. I don't, a lot, just again, I think attention to detail, all the little things matter. And then I think too, just evaluation and developing your team, and to be methodical and constant about it. I guess is the best way for me to put it.
The one story is either Grant or Mike used to tell about him is the time it flooded, football offices flooded in the spring, some sprinkler system or whatever. And Snyder's biggest gripe about that was that it got all his game plans for the upcoming season wet. Do you make game plans in the spring for the upcoming season?
We go through and evaluate in a different way maybe than Coach Snyder did as far as putting it in an actual piece of paper. But we are constantly watching and evaluating teams we're going to play through the year.
How do you beef up a guy like Trevor Knight when he's so small to be playing Colin Klein? Do you add like extra pads on him, or you just?
You don't need to. I mean, we're not going live in practice anyway. So in other words, Trevor's perfectly capable of running in the same spaces Colin Klein's going to run in, and then we just got to make sure we're there in those spaces, that we've, the discipline of our reads and whatnot, that we're where we should be. Whether we tackle them or not doesn't matter. I mean, we're not tackling out there every day. I wouldn't have anybody ready for Saturday. So you don't really have to be, long as he's able to get in the same places that Colin is likely to be in. Okay.